Well, hello everyone. I thought I would do a little video, and just the purpose of it is just for some encouragement. These last 2 weeks have been kind of crazy, and it looks like we might be going through this for a while. Really, I don't know if there is an end in sight. Not trying to be a downer, but that's the way things are sounding. But last week I talked about how God uses these things for His glory, but I also want to talk about just how we as Christians should be responding. This morning in our men's Bible study, we read the last half of Haggai chapter 1, and the whole Haggai is only 2 chapters, small book. But the whole premise behind Haggai is that the Lord has allowed the Israelites to go back to Jerusalem. This is after after they have been taken to Babylon, the exile, and now they're being allowed to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. It was kind of interesting when it was pointed out that up to this point, whenever prophets had spoke, there was usually a rejection of what the prophets said. But in this case, in chapter 1, we find out that the prophets speak, and then Israel responds, and I love it. But so they've come back to rebuild the temple, but what has happened, and honestly, I don't really blame them for doing this, is when they get back to Jerusalem, they begin to build their own homes. They're concerned about their own well-being, so they begin to build their own homes. They begin to plant crops. They begin to do all this stuff, and God has to kind of shake them up a little bit. He basically tells them, "Hey, do you remember why you came to Jerusalem? The purpose was to build my house." And when the Israelites heard this, they responded. Haggai chapter 1, verse 12, "Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people feared the Lord. Then Haggai, the messenger of the Lord, spoke to the people with the Lord's message. 'I am with you, declares the Lord.' And the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and worked on the house of the Lord of hosts, their God, on the 24th day of the month, and the 6th day, in the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius the king." They listened. They heard what the Lord said. The Lord said, "You're here because of me." I don't think God faulted them for wanting to take care of themselves, but they had forgotten the purpose. I mean, and when I say they forgot it within just a very short period. I mean, it took time for them to get down to Jerusalem, but in between the time that they left, knowing that they were going back to rebuild the temple, and the time that they got to Jerusalem, they forgot the purpose. The immediate circumstances overwhelmed them. I feel like that is the temptation for Christians right now during this whole virus thing, that we are tempted by our circumstances right now to look at the immediate needs. Therefore, the panic, the rush to stores, hoarding supplies and things like that, and forgetting what is most important. For us Christians, what is most important is that we share the good news with the world. We have, or we should have, quite the assurance in the God that we believe in and the God that we serve, that He is capable of taking care of us. He's capable of making sure that our needs are met and so forth. And I'll confess, I got caught up in the panic earlier this week. Not so much because I heard the whole viral thing was coming and I needed to stock up, but because when everything started flying off the shelves, I began to think about my family and think about their needs, and going to the store and seeing things like milk and bread that had been wiped off the shelf. I began to panic a little bit as well. But we have a God that meets our needs. We have a God that loves us, that will meet our needs. And our first and foremost thoughts should be on Him and on serving Him. And so I just want to encourage you with that today. Serve Him. Keep Him at the forefront of everything. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your family. There's nothing wrong with making sure that you have work and making sure that you have money to provide for those necessities. But remember that we're here to serve Him, and that He is the priority. And in the midst of working and in the midst of providing, we have these opportunities to share the good news of Jesus Christ and the hope that we have in Him to the rest of the world. So again, I said this last Sunday, there's a lot to be joyful about in this situation. Be of good cheer, and go do what God has required of you to do. Don't worry. God is in control. And, there is so much assurance there that He is still the authority and still has the supreme power over all things. So go do what you're supposed to do, okay? And don't panic, don't worry. We're going to be okay. So, hey, I'll see you hopefully Sunday, whether it's through the Facebook Live or if it's at the church building itself. But I'm looking forward to worship next Sunday, and looking forward to see what God does in this whole thing. So, talk to you all later.